Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast brought to you by RaceForThePrize.com. Darlington Truck Series Friday night action. Tons of racing all day Friday. Tons of racing in the month of May. What a time to be alive. So excited. So glad to have you here. If you really want to embrace all the fantasy NASCAR trucks, Xfinity and Cup, get into the data. Get the spreadsheet at RaceForThePrize.com. You'll see the information about how it works. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, money over to me. I send you access to all this data, lap by lap practice data. We'll really let you have a fun time on Friday and Saturday, digging into the stats, building your own lineups. Makes it easy. You're not scouring and searching the internet and looking through tweets. And what did this beat writer say? Here's a story for you. All they're going to tweet about this week is throwback schemes. All you're going to hear. That's all you're going to get. You want some stats, you want some information? Fantasy, NASCAR, spreadsheet, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. Let's do it. Get in it. Join the team. Saving you time. Making it easy. Having fun. Big month of May. Big Friday night. Okay, let's look at some prices. Oh, man, I'm kind of excited. Why am I so excited? Why? And when am I not excited? Well, first, before we look at the specific prices of the drivers, let's do some little recapping and see who's had speed recently. We'll look at Kansas, and we'll also look at last year's Darlington race. So let's get to it. Got to put in the work. That's what we do here. This is not a podcast about the guy sucks, the guy's good. No, let's break it down. Let's really understand what's happening. And our deep analysis last time at Kansas led us to be pretty thorough and accurate in making our predictions. If you watched any of the podcasts leading into Kansas, they're all pretty spot on, and everything pretty much played out how we seemed to believe it would play out. In the pre-lock show or live show, Corey Heim was one of our contenders for a hog. There was runs away, the show wins. Zane Smith was the second guy on the list because he also provided place differential, and there was no surprise. And again, that's not much of a surprise this year when we're talking about the top tier elite hogs. It's time for Tricon. It's Zane Smith now when he occasionally jumps in with Bill McAnally. I know his first race, a little rough, new team, and he's not in there full time, but they are way up to speed. And we talked about what he said in practice. He was really excited. He said that his Bill McAnally truck reminded him a lot of his 2022 Front Row Motorsports winning truck at the Kansas Speedway. The miss, he had to play a little bit, was Ty Majeski. Not a good restart at the very beginning. Gets in the wall, game over. All right, so we can pretty much summarize that one. Nick Sanchez starting in the back, you had to play him. Although he didn't end up in the optimal lineup. Still was fast, though. Still had a good race. Not surprised. Caden Honeycutt, we loved Caden Honeycutt. You hear me talk about him every week on the podcast. I am a believer in him. He has done well in equipment that hasn't been that great in the past. And now that this week he was in a Tricon truck, and across the board, as I said, and as we said and noted, Tricon was going to be fast at Kansas. They were fast in practice, and they were fast in the race, and Caden Honeycutt leading the charge. No surprise there. Eckes did not love his truck in practice, but again, he is one of those drivers that we kind of have to put that note around or that asterisk around. He has that personality of not really happy-go-lucky, and we've seen that with drivers before, so be aware of that as you're hearing a driver talk about his or her chances, maybe his chances. And Eckes was a little defeatist, saying, yeah, I don't think I quite have the speed. And he was right that he didn't quite have the speed of Heim. And so that was enough. And looking at the lap-by-lap data in practice, we knew to downgrade Eckes and push up Heim and push up Smith and even dance with Majeski, even though that dance didn't work. Either way, still a good day for Eckes, but everything played out pretty much the way he expected. Brett Moffitt in the Tricon truck, first time ever. Well, not first time ever, but his first run with Tricon. Not dusty at all. You could see in practice he looked good. Had the starting position to score points. No brainer. Dean Thompson. There's always the worries of Dean Thompson being Dean Thompson. But he had just run in the ARCA race. Had been good at Kansas in the past. He's had good races. He's had bad races. But again, you just had to lean on across the board. These Tricon trucks are fast, and he delivered. Tanner Gray, Tricon truck, delivered. Bailey Curry, the one that fell through the cracks. There were other places to go to in the value range, but Curry was there. And Curry wasn't too much of a stretch starting 21st. You worry, could he get enough finishing position points? He ultimately is the guy that makes it into the optimal lineup. And this truck for Nice is running really well. Bailey Curry is running really well and is someone that we want to keep our eye on moving forward. Again, if you built enough lineups, you got to Bailey Curry, but there were other places that people went. Brett Holmes, how about that for an attaboy? Very good, solid run for a backpacker to get all the way and finish into 14th. That's it for the top 10, and then I think it would be better to break down the race by looking at it on the lap-by-lap screen. Again, we can see in order of finish, Heim first, Smith, Eckes, Honeycutt battling there for a possible win at certain points in the race. Can't say enough about how good Honeycutt has been. Again, oh God, he's going to mention it. Late model racers, they laughed at him. Yeah, that's right. You laughed at me when I was pulling up late model stats. They laughed at me when I was looking at some of the most prestigious late model races and identified drivers that had done well and raced against big time fields. Now, the people doing the laughing are the people who thought, all right, yeah, your backyard late model racing and whatever it is out in the Southwest where you roll up with some junk car. I get it. That's joke stuff. That's kid stuff. We ain't talking about that. Out west, Southwest, where you're racing these junkers, and it's like, it's not real racing. I understand that. I wouldn't pull that kind of late model. That's not late model, right? That's like hobby stuff. Yeah, I'm not pulling those stats. It's not real racing. When we're talking about the Southern American states, Southeast, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, when we're talking about that's real late model. That's real racing. That's real race cars. Those are real stats. They can be trusted. People dismissed me because they don't understand the difference. All right, enough with that. Caden Honeycutt, great late model racer. It's translating. Brett Moffitt, great. Sanchez, great. Tricon. Bill McAnally, Daniel Dye. Why does this truck continue to be too cheap? Daniel Dye has plenty of experience. Daniel Dye is slowly progressing as a truck driver. Bill McAnally is one of the top tier teams. No reason whatsoever for this truck to continue to be this cheap. And he has continued to perform. Matt Crafton and Thor continue to slot into the back 10. Top 10, 10th, 11th, 12th for him. Rhodes. I know Enfinger's not there anymore. Enfinger's with CR7/Allied to McAnally, but might as well just be another Thor truck in my mind, and the speed's not there. Bailey Curry, here again, there's Grant Enfinger finishing 12th. That's about where the speed is with his, again, it's a Robaugh / Enfinger operation / McAnally ally, technically, whatever. Rajah Caruth and Spire step backwards. Wouldn't completely wipe them off the board yet, though. For Holmes, good day. Ty Dillon, this is interesting. If they can start to run better, overall, it was a good day. It's a step forward. We're going to see how things go. One would expect with a new driver and a new crew chief and possibly plenty of new team members, maybe they're finally starting to get into the groove. That being said, War Rackley Racing, upcoming race at North Wilkesboro, not Darlington, but North Wilkesboro, the son of the co-owner is going to be in the field. The son of the co-owner started racing at 17. Daddy, I want a Oompa Loompa. 2 years later, he's now in a truck. And he's actually been halfway decent. I think he has a win at Five Flags. So again, if I'm going to put credit towards these guys that are running well in late models, super late models, and the kid's done halfway decent. He started out in simulators, late models, super late models. He's in the ASA Tour, competing each week. He's won a handful of pulls. You know what? Give the kid a chance. Let's see how it goes. But that being said, Ty Dillon looking over the shoulder. Ty Dillon, hey, you may be getting fewer resources down the stretch. Right, you might have a truck for the rest of the year, and you may not even plan on running this truck next year. Maybe you got bigger plans, Ty Dillon. But here's a real situation, Ty. If this kid comes in and runs well at North Wilkesboro, he's going to get a couple more rides this season. And on those weekends when he gets a couple more rides, there's probably going to be fewer resources for you. So you better get it together and get it together now. Ben Rhodes not running well this year. Jake Garcia really looks like more of a step back, going from McAnally to Thor. Lane Riggs disappoints, but kind of waiting to see what happens there. Tyra Ankrum, that's a pretty bad day for him, but he did suffer a penalty. Now we get kind of here towards the back pack, and we have Mason. Now, technically, the best of the back pack is going to be Brett Holmes, who finishes 14th. But then if we look at them more clustered together, again, remember when we're looking at value versus value and trying to make our selections, we want to maximize finishing position, who's going to win the back pack, but also who will get the most place differential in the back pack. Because sometimes winning the back pack is great, but if you start a little bit too close to the front, then you don't score points. And a guy who finishes maybe third in this class, in this Lemons class, but also gets 7-8 place differential points, ends up being the better play. Timmy Hill, not bad. Timmy Hill's been pretty good at Kansas. Matt Mills, we would expect more from an East truck, but at this point, I think this is the realization that this is not Bailey Curry's truck. This is not Caden Honeycutt's truck. Where it was Caden Honeycutt with... I need to double check that. Yeah, I said Caden Honeycutt was with Tricon. Caden Honeycutt was with Nice. Caden Honeycutt's been with Nice all year. And when you connect Caden Honeycutt and Phil Gold, who typically is Ross Chastain's crew chief, they're pretty electric. So, that's actually a pretty good sign for Ross Chastain this week after Phil put together a pretty solid ride at Kansas. But then again, Phil and Ross had success at Kansas in the past as well. Either way, Caden getting a lot out of an East truck. Clearly Bailey Curry getting a lot out of an East truck. And possibly the story is just Matt Mills running a ride, or Matt Mills just not being very good. But I'm not really surprised to see him sliding in right there. Thad Moffitt is interesting. We'll discuss him a little bit further. Clearly finishing towards the middle of this backpack. And he tends to start pretty low. Although in this race, he didn't start as far to the bottom because there were plenty of issues heading into the race. Really hurt some of our value options. Friesen, not his day. Lawless Allen really struggled out there. Did not have speed for the Rayum trucks. Mason Maggio in the secondary Rayum truck, the former AM22 self-ride, Szynski ride, now a AM purchase ride. And then Boyd and Cobb just cruising in the back. Connor Mosek was having a pretty good race. And then he gets a flat tire. He won the ARCA race, stole that one from Tanner Gray. Purdy had an issue in the pits. Taylor Gray hit the wall. There's your Kansas recap. How about a Darlington recap? And then we'll go into some pricing. What say you? All right, let's look at our optimal. Christian Eckes in control most of the race. Now, just a real quick picture of the race. It is pretty much green, all stage 1. It is green, all stage 2. And then caution, 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 caution. Fun times. Eckes, 1521 on your hog points. Byron, I believe, wins stage 2. He's running for KBM. Very expensive, not a great point per dollar play, but does ultimately end up in the optimal lineup. You get Hosever, 8 fast lap points, 13 place differential, top 5 finish. Also, pretty cheap price tag at $8,000 for a championship contender in 2023. Corey Heim loses a bunch of place differential points, but is right there with Eckes. So this is basically Kansas in 2024 was the Eckes and Heim show. Darlington in 2023 was the Eckes and Heim show. Been a lot of that over the last 2 seasons. Dean Thompson jumping in there with a Tricon truck. Dean Thompson last week, Tricon truck. Caden Honeycutt, not for Nice, but for Young. I would argue that his Nice truck is an upgrade over his Young truck. Young, really, at their best, was 20th place truck, so a very solid effort for Young Honeycutt to get out there, average running position 20th. But you throw in the cautions at the end, he finishes 10th. We'll look at that a little bit more close. Raja Kruth for GMS gets a 6th place finish, $6,000. Bit of a steal. Probably would have worried you starting 13th a little bit. But if we're looking at this optimal play of Caden Honeycutt starting 24th, Dean Thompson in a Tricon truck starting 25th. Now, I know we do have to kind of step back a little bit. Remember, this was still early days for Tricon, relatively speaking. So maybe you weren't as bullish. And we know that Dean Thompson still a little shaky in the past, still a little shaky now. So you couldn't completely buy in, but not the craziest play in the world. Taking Heim on the pole, leading a bunch of laps. Darlington, not crazy at 99. Just William Byron in a KBM truck, not that crazy. Carson Hosever starting 18th at 8,000. Again, that's a pretty easy play. And then if you wanted Eckes as well, he was there. Freezing solid day. Bubba Wallace running for Spire, no Tricon. Solid day. See Daniel Dye with the top 20 DFS running for GMS. Who else we got back here? We don't need to go that deep. Let's look at some of the laps. Break them down. And look specifically at Honeycutt. So Honeycutt was, like we said, average running position of 20th. He's in 18th on lap 146. Not bad for a young truck. Not super surprising, not disappointing, just good. Doing what he's supposed to do, minding his beeswax, and then he benefits from the chaos at the end, gets to 10th. And that very well could happen this week at Darlington. Dean Thompson, same story. 15th in the Tricon truck, that's what he's supposed to do. Minds his beeswax, benefits at the end. Heim has his issues, and then benefits from the cautions at the end. I wonder if it was a speeding penalty or a flat tire here on lap 119. We can look that up. One of the beauties of the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet is using the data and the notes. On lap 119, Heim leads the field to green from the outside with the number 17 on the inside. The number 17 gets the lead before the 19 takes it from him. Number 11 down to 21st. I think what happens is he gets into dirty. Oh, here it was. If we go back to lap 115, Heim stayed out while the other lead lap trucks, now sometimes they have typos. That's all right, NASCAR, I'll forgive you. For pitting, lead lap trucks pit, 17 wins the race off pit road. So if we go to lap 115, just a tricky strategy play that didn't work out for him. Again, you get this kind of context with the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet. We go to lap 115. Heim's in second. He stays out. Everybody else pits. A couple laps later, he's dead in the water. Everybody's got fresh tires. Able to regroup a little bit. He pits, fresh tires, and he recovers. One of the now you might say, well, it's stupid, but we were coming down to a scenario where people are going to run out of tires, and maybe you could have an extra set at the very end of this race. And so that was one of the gambles that some of these teams might try to play. And so it wasn't really the dumbest thing ever to do. And there was an idea like, maybe we'll save that and we'll save these tires for now. We don't really want to burn through all of our tires. So not the craziest thing. And thankfully it saves his day. But unfortunately, he goes from top 5 and possibly winning at the end to just barely being able to get back into the top 10. I can see Bubba. Carson Hosever. I think we've got a pretty good idea of this race. All right, let's go into our truck pricing for the week. You got an idea of Darlington to Kansas. here we go. Lawless Allen at the bottom. I know I talk about Lawless Allen every week, and you probably get tired of hearing about Lawless Allen every week, but the first way that I will lead into the Lawless Allen conversation is what you actually need to know. And so if you got Lawless Allen on the bottom and Kyle Busch at the top, Lawless Allen's going to be in the conversation because we have a $1,500 driver that could lead every lap and run a lot of fast laps. Remember, last year's Darlington race, completely green in stage 1, completely green in stage 2. That's a lot of fast and laps led points that could go to Kyle Busch. And even if this thing does go dicey at the end, you still have Kyle Busch at the front, avoiding most of the insanity, and then also having banked those stage 1, stage 2 fast lap and lap led points. And then you're like, all right, well, I've had to have saved somewhere. Where did I try to find the savings? With the cheapest driver on the board. Now, this isn't even theoretical. This is actual. We can just simply go to the last race with Kyle Busch at a cheap 14.5. 19 fast laps, 28 laps led. We break that race down. We get some cautions early, then we go green, then we go green, and then we go green, and then we go caution, 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 caution at Texas. Not too much cautions, but you get your anticipated cautions at the end of the intermediate track race. Not too different than Darlington last year. Green, green, caution, caution, caution. Kyle Busch banks at Texas, stage 1, stage 2. Up front, doesn't have to worry about caution, caution, caution. He's good to go. He's in the optimal lineup. That was Kansas, or that was Texas. That's kind of the flow that we saw at Darlington last year. And we look at Texas this year. Hey, ding dong, Kyle Busch, optimal lineup with 95 fantasy points. No surprise there. Hey, ding dong, Lawless Allen in the optimal lineup. Starting 21st. Ugh. I don't want to play Lawless Allen starting 21st. But 5,100 starts 21st, runs 18th, actually finishes 11th. Race flow, green, green, caution, 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 benefits at the end. Look, he just did it at Texas. Now, the worry with Lawless Allen is he did not run well at Kansas. Which Lawless Allen are we going to get? It's not going to worry me too much if he can give us a little bit of place differential starting further back. But then again, if he's able to qualify 21st, then his truck was actually halfway decent. Again, you're just going to have to go into the flow chart, looking at that backpack and saying, which one of these trucks, again, you want to consider the price as always, but who can maximize finishing position? And then step 2 in the flow chart, where are they starting? This would have been a tough play to get to, but in reality, it wasn't. It was a necessary step. You pretty much had to take this leap, and you're going to be in a similar situation this week. Doesn't matter where Lawless Allen qualifies. Here is your warning. It doesn't matter where he qualifies. This savings of 51, he's 5,000, is always going to open the door to Kyle Busch. And all of your lineups, the way that you have the most flexibility is to constantly go to Lawless Allen, regardless of where he is starting. And it's a bitter pill to swallow, and he may not be the best value play. He may not maximize finishing position. He may not have the best situation in terms of place differential. But the third step that we don't mention is look at the money he is saving and how that opens up the rest of your lineup. And so you make a little bit of a sacrifice with, all right, he is not the best in the mid-pack, doesn't score the best points. He doesn't become very efficient because he doesn't give enough place differential. But the third thing that he does offer is flexibility that opens up my other drivers to make up for the difference. And so you're going to see probably quite a bit of Lawless Allen in your life. Just facts, folks. There's Texas right there. Just a couple weeks ago, Allen in your life. Boyd, because he is cheap, will open up an opportunity. And Boyd is not a place I want to go. And a good way to I want to avoid Boyd. But a good way is just look at these laps and then where he is in relationship to other drivers. So we have an attrition race. And you can simply see on the screen drivers that have issues, mechanical issues, wreck out, finish laps down, right? This is Kansas. We got drivers that are 1 lap down. These guys are all 1 lap down. These guys are all 2 laps down. These guys are all 3 laps down. 4 laps down, Spencer Boyd. That's not going to help us. He's not benefiting from these wrecks at the end. You got guys that are 3 laps down, and still the attrition play of Boyd and Cobb are not getting it done at Kansas. Whereas Lawless Allen, who had not a good race car, not a good day at Kansas, still, because he was just halfway whatever, middle of the backpack, still gets to 26th. Still is able, if he started last, to climb 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 places. Imagine he started back of the pack. He gets all of this just by being a regular race car driver. Boyd, by being Boyd, doesn't get that. He really needs Wreckfest early in the race. He can't benefit from late race wrecks as much because he's already so many laps down. He'll get some boost, but that's just. And let's look at Texas and see if it's any better. So again, we've got a lot of guys not finishing the race. Boyd at least gets to 27th, but again, when we look at the backpack, he's 3 laps behind. I mean, he's 6 laps down. Ugly. He's 3 laps behind Matt Mills, Purdy, and Rhodes group. Tough to make that play. So, I have no idea why he's cheaper or more expensive than Lawless Allen. That kid can't get any respect. But again, it's pretty rare to give anyone respect when their name is Lawless. Crickets. Mason Maggio, technically Sawinski, AM22 truck, but this ain't the old AM22 truck. It's been bought, repurposed. It's a Rayum secondary ride, and it's really not that fast, not that great. 30th in driver rating last race at Kansas, 29th. Better than Boyd, not better than Allen. Pretty simple. If you want to mix things up and go to Maggio, it's not the worst. Obviously, it's his teammate. Not the worst call if you're building multiple lineups, or if Maggio is starting significantly further towards the back. If you get Lawless Allen starting 21st, Maggio starting 30th, I would not fault you for going to Maggio if you have the money. Seems like the safer option. Maybe. We would want to see the practice speeds, but there would definitely be a conversation and a debate. So Moffitt hasn't been terrible. We have talked about this. He's not good. But when we look at this class, we could, by the end of the season, consider him in the middle and sometimes battling for the top. It is a brand new team, this faction team, and we need to respect that. This is not the same old operation. They're working every week to get better. They're slowly, methodically trying to get through races. They're not out there trying to dominate or crush. Boyd is in the same situation. So let's give him a little bit of credit too before we talk about how terrible they've been. It's a new team. They're not trying to tear up trucks. They're slowly building their way forward. It's fine, but they're not someone we want to play. I would argue that Moffitt's been maybe a step ahead and has exhibited or demonstrated a little bit more speed. But again, they're taking baby steps. They're not trying to do anything crazy. They want to complete races. They want to run around the top 30, maybe get a couple spots at the end, but they're not doing anything aggressive. They're not trying to put the truck in a bad situation, and that really limits the upside. That limits finishing position. But all in all, if we were to look at their business plan and track where they're going, it's not bad so far. I would argue that they are on course to, by the end of the season, being there in the middle of the backpack, the middle of the Lemons class, and competing with Timmy Holmes. Probably not Timmy Holmes, Timmy Hill, Maybe not Brett Holmes, but again, Brett Holmes probably similar path. And I think Brett Holmes' team probably rushed it a little bit. And had they gone a little bit slower and been more thorough, they could be much higher now. Now, also, Brett Holmes' team struggled and suffered from coming into the series during the COVID era. It didn't help. But either way, we have seen this pattern before. Tim Hill got in pretty slowly, methodically. And that's what Moffitt's doing. And we can see driver rating, not the greatest. Does have some decent look. 28th at Las Vegas. That's fine. That's what we would want from a brand new truck team. 29th at Bristol, fine. Just bring it home safe. 31 at Martinsville. It's a tough racetrack. Texas didn't go their way. Kansas, 29th. Not bad. And when you can run a 29th, there's going to be DNFs. There's going to be mechanical failures. There's going to be issues. As long as you're not 7 laps down like Boyd, maybe you're 3 laps down, you can benefit at the end. And that's what Moffitt has done. 24th is where he ultimately finished at Kansas. Not bad finishes. And what it really comes down to is, in DFS for Moffitt, is how far back can he start? Unfortunately, at Kansas, in terms of DFS, we had a lot of issues, and we had a lot of slugs, and people just completely not even trying in qualifying. And that pushed Moffitt too close to the front, and he really couldn't get a place differential attrition gain. And that very well could be the case at Darlington. You really don't want to go at Darlington with the lady too tough to tame. No, the lady in black, the track too tough to tame, and try to lay down a hot lap as a backpacker. You're going to wreck your car. The backpack just need to go out there and cruise. And so it's going to be a battle of who can be the slowest. And hopefully Moffitt wins that battle if you really want to consider him as a value play. He's going to do the same thing as well. Like, they're not going to say, hey, Thad, let's see how good we can qualify. Oh, really? No. Stop, you idiot. We're trying to protect the race car. Where have you been? We're building this team. Go out there and take it easy, kid. Or we'll start in the back. We'll stay in the back. And when the others wreck each other at the end, we'll get a couple spots. We'll go over to the Waffle House. I thought only the winners get to go to the Waffle House. It's the freaking Waffle House. Anybody can go in there. Anyone, as long as you know how to throw a chair. Yeah, that's it, right. Can you fight, Thad? Yeah, I guess. All right, we're going to the Waffle House. Maybe we'll go fight the winner. Grab a 6-pack. Let's roll. Mason Massey. Young. Not bad. Don't know if I really love him in the backpack. I think I have dialed down my love for Young so far. I like Young and Leland Honeyman in the Xfinity series a lot more, but they're still doing fine. They're bouncing back from a year that I don't think was that great last year. Mace Massey's been fine. Not super excited, but again, when I'm comparing him to the rest of the backpack, Holmes has more speed. Mills has slightly more speed. Maybe sometime Mills has a breakthrough. If Honeycutt is fast for Nice, if Curry is fast for Nice, I don't think Mills is nearly close to them at all in terms of being a good race car driver. But, boy, he should be somewhere closer. Anyway, I don't think Massey's quite up to snuff with those guys, although he did end up with a pretty solid finish, right, at Kansas. No, I think actually might have had an issue late in the race. 21st, still not bad. Not a bad day. I think he was running a little bit better. Brett Holmes at 5,500. Timmy Hill, Matt Mills, all going to be guys that you consider. Again, when we're making these value picks, we look at the backpack, and we're definitely going to have to go down to this range if we're going to afford Kyle Busch. Who's going to finish towards the top of this class? Who also can get place differential? Because maybe you get the guy that's the second best. Let's say that Timmy Hill is second best in terms of finish, but gets you a little bit more place differential, then he's the best play. There's the consideration that maybe Moffitt really only can get to, maybe he gets past Boyd, he gets past Maggio. Maybe he gets past Massey. I don't know if he has as good of a race car. Probably not. But then you have a bunch of guys with issues because it is Darlington. And so he gets another 5 spots Now, they're not 5 spots on these guys. They all get those 5 spots too. But in the end, because he had the place differential, those 5 spots, he's a little bit cheaper. Moffitt could quite possibly be the best point per dollar play. But again, there's also a scenario of like, cool, that was good, but you also had a second one of these guys because we are trying to get Kyle Busch into the lineup. So it could be any combination of these drivers in the back. And right now, where I would stand, Lawless Allen, yes. Thad Moffitt, unfortunately or fortunately, is someone that you may consider. Really need him starting in the back, though. Brett Holmes, yes. We saw it last week. He really broke through and got out of the backpack. Timmy Hill, yes. Slow, methodical racer, knows what he's doing, bides his time, can win the class. Can he do much more than win the class? Sometimes he has this breakthrough, but he definitely can win the class. Matt Mills, just ultimately putting respect on the niche trucks. He's been here in the Xfinity Series plenty of times before. Overall, very disappointed when I put him up to Bailey Curry and put him up to Caden Honeycutt or put him up in comparison to Ross Chastain. But in this class, he could definitely win it. All right, we take a step up into drivers like Jack Wood, who cannot be trusted, but he is only $6,000 in a Bill McAnally truck. You're going to have to consider it. But you don't have to consider it too long because you've got Daniel Dye for whatever reason at 6,200. He has been a top 15 driver this year. If you look at his rating rank, that's his driver rating. And then we rank the best driver ratings over this season from top to bottom. He has the 14th driver rating, and somehow he gets a 6,200 with Bill McAnally. Makes 0 sense. So you can avoid Jack Wood if you can go to Daniel Dye, but here's the situation that you're probably going to run into is Daniel Dye is going to start close to the top 15, whereas Jack Wood will probably start 22nd, and you're going to say, man. And even in that scenario, I'd probably still rather have Dye. But he may not even end up being optimal. It really depends on how these guys work. If they can score points, then you may not need Dye. If the backpackers don't give savings and give points, then Dye is going to be that scary play. But is it really that scary? He's a top 15 truck. If he starts in the top 10, then I think you just got to abandon him, though. Connor Jones, it's a Thor truck, but Thor hasn't been that great. Connor Jones hasn't been that great. 22nd driver rating. Kind of following that Ty Majeski path of working for the team, gets rides every once in a while, but nowhere near the talent of Ty Majeski. Yeah, not really excited about that play. Bailey Curry, 6,400, still at a price point where probably too low. Again, 15th, very good. I don't even consider him in the backpack anymore. Consider him in the top tier. 15th place, very solid. 6,400. He starts 20th this week, no problem playing him. Ty Dillon, been a rough season. They did take a step forward at Kansas. Pressure's on, turning it around with the young kid around the corner. Let's see how Darlington goes. But at 6,600, I would rather go to Curry. I would rather go to Dye. I would much rather build around backpackers. We got to see how that works out. Colby Howard, I got a note here. His last 3 races at Darlington were with Robaugh, McAnally, and Robaugh. So Robaugh, okay equipment in 23. McAnally, pretty good equipment in 22. Robaugh in 21, not really the greatest. Pretty solid results. Colby is going to be with Tricon at 6,700. I would much rather go to Colby Howard than Ty Dillon. Tricon was awesome last week. Dean Thompson back in our life with Tricon. Why not? Top 10 last year. And hey, how about that? Back with Tricon again. Let's roll the dice with Dean. That's fine with me. A lot of good plays here in the $6,800 range. Jake Garcia has been disappointing, 20th in terms of driver rating. Again, that's a little bit more of just Thor across the board not being that good. McAnally, Spire, Tricon. We know who is at the top anymore. And Thor has really just taken a step back. Garcia, much promise last year from McAnally. This was not a lateral step. This seems to be a step backwards. 6,900. I would much rather have his partial teammate or his part-time teammate in Connor Jones at 63. Don't really want anything to do with either one of them. Chase Purdy can't be trusted. You're going to take his Bama Buggy sponsor and get a ride again. This race has not worked out for him in the past. Most races do not work out for him. At 7,000, not interested. Lane Riggs, I am a Lane Riggs believer, but it's going to take time. And boy, Darlington is a tough racetrack. And boy, $7,200 is a lot to ask for a guy making his first race who hasn't really been all that comfortable this season. It's going to take him a while. There will be races where Lane is going to be more comfortable. This probably won't be that race. This probably isn't the field for him. I could easily see Thompson finishing better than him. Daniel Dye finishing better than him. Bailey Curry finishing better than him. And maybe even some of these other guys could dice it up. Stuart Friesen, 7,300, probably too cheap. Second, third, has been comfortable at this track. Should have enough speed to run in the top 10. Definitely going to be in consideration if we can get to him in our lineups. Really just depends, because we're going to spend so much on Kyle Busch and maybe another top driver that 7,300 could be no man's land. Usually what we end up with in the 7,000 range is who messed up qualifying. And we've seen Tanner Gray kind of been a poster boy for that. Tanner Gray has been running well, a little bit better than usual recently. Always that top 15 driver, but maybe coming into his own a little bit. Big weekend at ARCA, doesn't get the win after dominating the race in the ARCA series at Kansas. And has a good race at Kansas with 7th best driver rating. Back-to-back top 10s at intermediate tracks. Tricon's just doing everything right. Very much a believer. But with this range of Gray and Friesen, and I'm not really even considering Riggs, but with these two, it's really going to be, can he get me place differential? Same thing with Crafton, Infinger, and Rhodes. We do not expect really any of these drivers to lead laps or run fast laps. And if I had to rank them in finishing position, I'll give the edge to Gray over Friesen, but it's really close. But they are clearly the two cars that are trucks that are the fastest. And then you've got these guys who actually are more expensive and are in equipment that's not nearly as good and really haven't exhibited that much this year. Now, I know technically, in terms of driver rating, Rhodes 11, Infinger 11, Crafton 10, and Gray and Friesen have not been as good. But if you're watching the races, you can see that they are definitely trending in different directions. That's my take. I would lump them all together in the same category, but I would take Gray and Friesen first. And salary does matter in that equation. And then I would probably likely take the savings with Crafton. Rhodes just, man, seems to be snake bitten. And Infinger, probably with the worst equipment of everybody. I know, yeah, it's just not. I mean, yeah, they do have a technical alliance, but they're not on Thor. They're not on officially Bill McAnally's team. They're not it's not a Tricon truck. And even the Halmar, which Halmar's not there, Larson / Friesen operation, small team, it still puts together solid rides. All right, as we move up, Ankrum, a little bit of bad luck lately. Had the bad luck of Texas. Texas, where did that come from? Had, again, a pit issue at Kansas. Shake it off. It's fine, even with those disappointing situations. Imagine his driver ratings obviously suffered because of issues. But before he was having issues, he was a top 5 truck. At 85, and that's fine. That's good. Maybe this will suppress ownership. 8,500 for what was a top 5 truck before misfortunate events. Very interesting play with Ankrum. Again, had a really solid run of top 5 runs, top 5 driver ratings. Then at Texas, wreck at the very beginning. Kansas, pit road issue, ruins his race. This McAnally truck has speed. Ankrum has been good. All he has to do is not have bad luck. He's back to the top 5 at 8,500. He works. Roger Caruth's fallen off a little bit, but not really. It's just that the cream has risen to the top, and we've kind of settled into, all right, we know who the best trucks are, and we know who the back of the top 10 is. And Roger Caruth is in the back of that top 10. He's not going to lead laps. He's not going to run fast laps, especially at Darlington, especially in this field. Can he finish in the top 10? Yes. At 8,700, that works, maybe. Very similar to the Ankrum play, but I would say that Ankrum has a little bit more upside, not that much. Again, we haven't seen Ankrum control a race yet either. He's not Heim. He's not Eckes. He's not Nick Sanchez. He's not even Ty Majeski. But he is right there scratching at the top 5. I don't know if Rajah Caruth is scratching at the top 5. They're definitely 5th to 10th drivers. I would slot Ankrum ahead of Caruth. That's all you're going to get. Maybe need some place differential. Taylor Gray, a step above them. My dark horse championship contender. He also is not leading laps, running fast laps, but he is in a better truck ultimately. I would argue the Tricon's the best. Taylor Gray really there. Obviously, Heim is their Wunderkid. But Gray is right there, having a great year with crew chief Jeff Hensley. And maybe eventually they will start leading laps and running fast laps. I don't expect this to be the weekend where that happens. And maybe because of his price point, this is the weekend where we can't really play him. But if we get place differential, that's fine. Ty Majeski, I think probably priced a little too high with the way these sort trucks are going. And I know he had mechanical issues last year at Darlington. Mechanical issues, or not really mechanical issues, wrecked at Kansas. I just don't see a reason to get there. Sanchez, it's close, but I don't think he has Eckes or Heim speed. Heim's the guy. Eckes is there as well. It just depends. You look at how they unload. Look at what they do during the weekend. Look at what they do in qualifying. It's one or the other. Pick your poison. Ross Chastain at 11,000 is probably too expensive. We're really going to need him qualifying the back. Phil Gould now in the East, been great. Last week had an excellent hot rod with Caden Honeycutt. Should be a good weekend for them. But ultimately, if you're paying Kyle Busch, probably not going to be able to get to Ross Chastain. That'll do it. Thanks for joining me. Hope you had a blast. Another Truck Series podcast in the book. Like, subscribe, share. Recruit people to the channel. Come on in, join on in. Be a part of this wonderful team. May package, racefortheprize06@gmail.com. If you want to negotiate pricing or whatever, $10 for the weekend, $25 for the rest of the month, you can do it. You want to get in on it. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. It's in the description below. Give a shout out to Colin for making the shorts. Those are doing really well. It's awesome. Really excited about that. I'm blessed to have you guys watching every week. Truly am. Love you guys. Trip to light. Fantastic.